ultimately, nobody's going to dispute that Anthony Joshua wins that fight against Jermaine Franklin. The conclusions are always going to be, we expected X, but we got Y. And there's going to be critique coming off the back of it. The early part, let's look at this in two sections. The early part of this fight, I was concerned because he was very tentative. And he took his time to grow into a fight. If we're only looking at the second half of the fight, there's a lot of positive to take away from this.
Totally agree. You know, we said anything but a knockout in sensational style wouldn't be good enough. We said that he needs to go out there, he needs to make a statement. Well, he's gone 12 rounds, and like you say, I saw glimpses there of improvements. You know, I see what I needed to see. And I think that was very, very important. So, yeah, you're right. After 6 rounds, I'm thinking, this is not a good night for Joshua. He's not showing us anything. He's still being negative. You know, he's still being tentative, not really throwing his shots, not committing with the right hand, not going through with a shot. As the second half of the fight come, he started growing in confidence. He started standing his ground. He was throwing 1-2, and then he was following up with the hook and the cross again. That's what I wanted to see. Didn't see enough of it, but we have to allow him time to develop with his new trainer, his new training camp, his new style over in Dallas, Derek James, and all of that. It may take a little bit of time. We did see a little bit of improvement, but we didn't see the finished article.
I think what we've also got to do, Andy, is pay a little bit of credit to Jermaine Franklin, because first 6 rounds, very competitive. He's in this fight. He's winning rounds off Anthony Joshua. Second half, okay, from an offensive point of view, it wasn't as good as the first 6. But the guy's got some whiskers on him because he took some heavy blows in those last 2 to 3 rounds.
Yeah, he did, absolutely. And you make a perfect point there, because you always have to look at what the other person did. He's got his own plans. He's not going to go in there and just be cannon fodder and fall over. Okay, you get a few of them early in your career, but not at this level. He was brought here for a reason, because they felt that he would provide him with some kind of a test, and he did that. In the second half, maybe he did run out of steam a bit. Maybe the size of Joshua got to him. I think the conditioning and the fitness of Joshua, that's a plus.
Yeah.
He went through 12 rounds there at a decent tempo. And we're not just searching for positives here. You've got to be fair to these athletes based on what you actually saw. He was a bit hesitant. He was a bit tentative. He didn't quite commit in the way that we would like to see him do. The trainer was saying double jab, triple jab, right hand, left hook. It took him a while to just get himself really
to have the confidence for
into
it,
a headspace where he was capable of doing it. But he has got a rock solid chin, Jermaine Franklin. Plenty of people would have gone down and stayed down under a few of them, and he didn't.
No, absolutely. And some of those uppercuts at the back end of the fight, and the long right hand seemed to, he got his timing going after about 7 or 8, AJ, didn't he? Early doors it just wasn't there. He was missing him on the way in, and you've got to, it does take 2 to tango. Jermaine Franklin up to 6 was in the fight, and then all of a sudden, whether it was a gas thing or whether he just lost a bit of heart, I don't know, he just decided that every time AJ was tagging him, rather than throw back like he was doing in the first 6, he wanted to tie up and therefore nullified the fight.
Maybe that was a little bit of Joshua as well, growing in confidence as those rounds were going on. You know, he was starting to stand a little bit stronger, putting the shots together, and he's overcoming. We've got to remember, Joshua had a lot of demons to overcome going into this fight. You know, coming off the back of those losses to Alexander Usyk, there was psychological damage, the confidence on all-time low. He'd gone and trained with a new trainer, a lot of changes, so you got to give him credit for that. And I think as the rounds went on, he started to feel more comfortable.
Activity is going to be a big thing for him, because when he was at his very best, Anthony Joshua, we're talking 2, 3, 4 times a year. I know that that is obviously very much different now that he's been at the World Championship level for his last 12 fights, but I want to see him out relatively quickly. I don't want to be waiting for the back end of the year before we see him again. I know this contest we were going wild and talking about, I don't want to see Dillian Whyte because that'd be a sidestep, and I want him to go for Fury, and I want him to go for this, and I want him to go for that. With all due respect, if that was with Fury, Joyce, Wilder for the first 6 rounds of that fight, he might not have seen the 7th round, Anthony Joshua. But Anthony Joshua slightly disappointed with his own performance, not getting the knockout. I think he's being a little bit hypercritical on himself, if I'm really honest. I think the fair assessment was what we heard a couple of moments ago from Eddie Hearn, and obviously what we've just been going through. We all wanted that viral moment, didn't we? We all wanted him to look as his explosive best. but it was evident early doors, Spence, in the first 6 rounds in particular, that there were a few demons there, and Jermaine Franklin played his part. He came to the party, he had a dance with him for 6 rounds, and then Anthony Joshua settled into it.
Listen, like I said when he boxed Dillian Whyte last November, we said Jermaine Franklin come with no credentials and left with loads of them because of his durability and the way he took the fight to Dillian Whyte, punched when Dillian punched, and we saw it again there. You know, it's not just about the performance of Anthony Joshua there, this is about the performance. Are we not respecting or seeing the performance of Jermaine Franklin? It takes 2 to tango, 2 to dance, and Jermaine Franklin played his part as well, you know. He had success there for the first 6 rounds. He gassed a little bit in the second 6 rounds, but what he showed us in the second 6 rounds was the durability. Joshua hit him flush. He got better in the second half of the contest, putting the combinations together, throwing good uppercuts, cluster punches. We did see improvements there. I can understand Joshua's frustrations because he wanted the KO. That's what it's all about, heavyweight boxing. He didn't get it, but we saw some glimpses of improvement. So, you know, he's on the right track.
Yeah, I think from the Jermaine Franklin point of view, in hindsight, good opponent for an Anthony Joshua rebuild. I know that I was hypercritical. I stand by that hypercritical because at the end of the day, he's a former 2-time unified heavyweight champion of the world. But with hindsight, you look at it and you think, okay, fair enough. By the back end of the fight, we did see the levels, I think, between the two men, of which we expected to see maybe a little earlier in the fight. And the thing that we gave him credit for in previous fights, his durability, was there in absolute evidence. I genuinely thought by the back end of that fight, Anthony Joshua, if he maybe was given another 2-3 rounds, he may have ended up gaining him more confidence, throwing the combinations 4s, 5s and 6s, and maybe have got a stoppage.
Yeah, I think very possibly. I like the fact that he was frustrated at the end, that he wasn't happy with the performance, because it was a slow build, that fight, wasn't it, basically? And if he'd started with a bit more confidence, and it's a really easy thing to say when you're not the one who's actually having to do it, but this is our job, we're here to critique, and if he'd started with a bit more confidence, doubled up on that jab, looked to put in the right hand, and just imposed himself on the fight more, then I think maybe in the later rounds 7, 8, 9 he could possibly have forced a stoppage. That would have been the ideal scenario, but we got what we got. And in terms of the opponent, I think you were right with what you said before the fight, but I think that Dillian Whyte is now the right man for him next, because we didn't know prior tonight where he's at. Now we do know where he's at, and it is what it is in that sense, isn't it?
He needs another 12-rounder, that's for sure, before going into those big fights with those top 2 or 3 names. He needs another fight to install just a bit more confidence and get a little bit more, what's the word, rawness out there.
Belief, mate.
It's a belief thing.
There you go.
Having just been up there with him on the ring apron, like a couple of, inches away from him, and feeling his energy, I think what I liked about him just then was that he's disappointed because he wants to get better. And I think we saw so many different aspects of him tonight that we did see some improvements in some ways. Like you said, someone's going to knock Jermaine Franklin out, but he's a difficult foe to have. He really hung in there in the end, and I'm really glad he finally said tonight, I want Fury or Wilder next. I don't think his team will give him Fury and Wilder next.
No.
But I think it will be Dillian Whyte, and I think we've said it all along. Look, we can see Dillian on the monitor.
Dillian Whyte will be licking his chops. Dillian Whyte will be licking his chops tonight off the best of that first 6 rounds. He'll be thinking to himself, do you know something? I fancy this now.
Yeah, but is he as durable as Jermaine Franklin? Maybe not.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah,
that is a good point regarding the durability of it. But having said that, though, the first 6 rounds, will he need to be durable? Because what we saw tonight, he was tentative, AJ, in that first 6 rounds.
But he developed through the fight. He got better. He still got caught, but he got better through the fight.
Hold on, remember what happened with Dillian Whyte and Jermaine Franklin. Dillian Whyte was in a really tough fight there, guys. A fight that could have easily gone the other way.
Jermaine Franklin did not move like that in the fight. He did not have that tenacity. He did in the exchanges, but he didn't move in that way. He didn't make himself a small target against Dillian Whyte. He was just standing in front of... You called him a plodder. He was in that fight. He was no plodder in this fight here tonight.
Well, let's do this. Marks out of 10 for an Anthony Joshua performance there. Where you go?
I could probably come away with that between a 6 and a 7, if I'm honest. Yeah. About a 6 and a 7.
My first thought was 6.5 as well, but I'm going to give him a 7.5 just to be different from Adam Catterall as we close the show.
I'm going to go straight in with a 7.
I'll give him a 6.
Yeah. I think that's fair. It's good. I think activity's key. Let's get this turned around quite quickly. Let's get him back in the ring and let's get him against maybe a Dillian Whyte or something of that level to see if Anthony Joshua can really go through the gears earlier in the fight. All in all, a successful night for him. Wide points decision victory. Don't forget that might just be getting lost in our narrative. 118, 111 on one card, 117, 111 on two cards. As Anthony Joshua just pops up on my monitor, he's actually stepped out of the ring now, gone into the crowd to meet, I don't know whether they're friends and family, but he is in and around a lot of people at the moment, having his picture taken with all these people that have come out for him this evening. He's still in his fight kit, and he's just meeting people, having selfies done, and all that type of thing. Still here at the O2 Arena as they shut down the arena, start to de-rig and set up for something else that I've no doubt is going to be with us tomorrow night. All in all, a successful night for Anthony Joshua. Where he goes from here, still slightly undecided, but I think the major conclusion that we can take is that Fury, Usyk, Wilder, that level, maybe not next. But who knows?